Welcome to Southern River Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. As you know, for the last 12 years, each and every year, we bring an inside look into sports, wellness, and into fitness. Well, not this week. Instead, we're going to go in a different direction. In this community, it's been a tough few months. We lost my brother Scott in October, and then Rick Boyer just a few months ago, and then 2 months ago in April, we lost Mike Kearns. And we did a tribute to Scott, we did a tribute to Rick. Well, this week we paid tribute to the memory of our friend Mike Kearns with three guests. Friends Steve Franke, Steve Tanke, and friend and co-worker at Midwest Family Broadcasting, Scott Robert Shaw. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Let's start with a thought about Mike. He was a brother, he's a husband, he was a grandfather. His first wife, Dawn, he would always say on the show, as you guys remember. And a father to Aaron and Patrick, grandfather, uncle, you name it, iconic broadcaster. And a lot of people didn't know he was a basketball and a golfer at La Crescent High School, member of the Mardi Gras and the Oktoberfest royalty, which he was really proud of, and a friend to many. He also had other honors given to him in his lifetime, but not as important as the word friendship. Let's begin with friendship, guys. And it's often been said that a friend is like a four-leaf clover, hard to find, but lucky to have. He was lucky to have you three as friends. And starting with you, Steve.
I met Mike in the early '80s. We played the Forest Hills golf course, which what is now the Forest Hills, what it was at the country club back then. Probably, I'm going to guess I met Mike in '81. We started playing together on a regular basis on Fridays about 1983, and that lasted 10 years easy.
Friday was your day.
Friday was our day.
Other people working,
right,
but not Steve and Mike.
Well, yeah, because Mike would start work at 4:30.
Yeah, right.
And so he would have had enough by 1 o'clock when we met, and
you'd start work at noon, and you were done at 1.
Yeah, right. But I did taxes in the winter, so I felt I deserved Friday afternoons off, I guess. So we met together, and sometimes it was just the two of us. Sometimes Bob Johns, Dick McClune, John Allen, other people might join us. But we made it nearly every Friday.
But when they joined you, were they up to your level of play, though, or did you have to kind of teach them a little bit?
John Allen and Bobby John sure were.
I remember those.
They were definitely on our level. They were a great challenge for us.
I bet you they were. Yeah. And even though you've done a lot over the years with Steve, with Mike Kearns, your friendship also started at the country club.
I knew him before I met him from a friend of his from La Crescent, but I really got to know him at the country club, and we competed together in the two-man best ball, the season-long tournament, for 15 or 20 years, and really got to know each other.
Yeah. Now, were you up to his level of golf?
Not even close. Not even close.
I played with him a couple of times, but I asked him one time, how should I play this putt? And he said, Terry, if I were you, I'd try to keep it low. So I give you an indication of my golfing. Actually, I've gotten better over the years because my friend Chris Weiss has given me some tips and also given direction on some clubs to use. He said, don't use those clubs with Roman numerals on them. You know, those are too old. But Scott Robert Shaw, friend and a co-worker and a boss. Mm-hmm. But my connection with KTY Radio was long before you were around, my friend.
Right.
It started with Charlie Kearns and waking me up at 6 a.m. And listening to the Lead Balloon Show. And then when he retired and then passed away, then in 1981, everybody thought, that's over with. You know, sports on KTY and the Lead Balloon Show, I'm not sure it's going to last. Oh, were they ever wrong?
It lasted a while. It lasted quite a while, yeah. From 1948, when the station first came on the air to serve the La Crosse area, Charlie Kearns was the host of the morning show, the Lead Balloon Show. Charlie was the sports director, traveling around calling basketball and football games. And as Mike got older, he would join Charlie and help him carry some gear. And before long, he was joining him behind a microphone. And And when Charlie passed, then Mike really picked that mantle up, and he became the morning show host, and he became the sports director. And the two of them together, I think in 2009, were jointly inducted into the Wisconsin Broadcasters Hall of Fame for their service to the community. From 1948 to the time Mike retired in 2016, there was a Kearns in the WK2Y studio, and that legacy is really unprecedented.
68 years of broadcasting. Here's an interesting thing that I saw recently on a tribute to Mike and Charlie. Steve Pavella, a good friend, said this, that Mike and Charlie were like the Newt Rockney, the Hank Aaron, the Babe Ruth, and the Michael Jordan of broadcasting, that team.
That they were the source for sports in the La Crosse area, no question. And I can't even begin to count the number of games that Mike may have called in his career, or how many miles he put on traveling to and from those games, but it was a lot. And it was his passion. He was dedicated to that. That was really what he enjoyed doing.
Mike never wanted to do anything else. And I remember long before perhaps you guys listened to KTY, for 8 years, Mike honed his craft sitting alongside of his dad. You remember that at all?
I don't remember that.
You're too young, that's the problem. Steve, well, I remember listening to that.
Yeah, I remember his father still working. I don't remember Mike necessarily being right at his side, but
Well, Jolly didn't let him say too much, so I didn't know he was there.
his dad was his hero, and very rightfully so.
He paid tribute to him at that particular function when he was inducted by talking about how he tried to emulate his dad's demeanor and his personality, humble, maybe communicative, and certainly bold in his delivery on the air, but quiet when he wasn't on the air. And I knew Charlie pretty well myself, so I knew that he was his father's son.
He never wanted his sports calls to be about himself in any way. He didn't want to get in the way of what was happening on the court or on the field, that's where the focus should be. And so he was somewhat understated as a broadcaster maybe, but didn't want it to be about him. So
Yeah, you could see that in his demeanor when he walked into a gym. You could see he just walked in and went right to work. It wasn't out to illuminate his presence or anything like that. Well, we're going to step aside just for a minute. We're going to take a break, and we continue more here as we memorialize and send a tribute to the life of Mike Kearns. We'll be right back.
With our busy lives, it's a comfort to know that we can still remember loved ones in a traditional way with a monument. Lewiston Monuments in Lewiston, Minnesota has been helping families purchase a monument for over 4 generations. You'll find a large selection of beautiful granite, marble, and bronze monuments, all at competitive prices. And they're a full-service company, so they also do straightening, cleaning, and repair of monuments. Stop in or call for a no-obligation consultation, or visit lewistonmonument.com for more information.
You know, the thing I'm most proud of when I think about our company is the reputation that we've been able to build in this community. Our technicians have done a great job going out and performing magnificent jobs for the customer. And our customers have rewarded us with some really great reviews online.
We have over 150 5-star reviews online right now. Our technicians do a great job out there, and our reviews show it.
We can say without hesitation, when you choose Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, you'll be glad you did.
To the special show this week, honoring Mike Kearns. Again, my guests Steve Franke, Steve Tanke, and Scott Robert Shaw. Golf, a big part of his life, and a lot of people don't maybe know that. I remember the Coleman Cup, even though I was never good enough to play in it. But it was June 20th, which is I'm sure a lot of our viewers know the longest day in the year, June 20th. Now celebrated with some, I'm involved in Alzheimer's, but back then it was the longest day of the year for golfing, and you were a part of that big celebration.
Yeah, there's two things that you brought up. The Coleman Cup was actually played in the fall, right around September 1st, around Labor Day. Longest day of golf. I don't know how I got involved in it, but I did. One day Mike said, "Why don't we play 100 holes?" Because it was the longest day, and we were doing it for some charity. I can't remember which one it was right now.
Boys and Girls Club, baby.
Yeah, yeah, it had to be. Anyway, Ron Quillen,
Sure.
and Chuck Mullen and Mike and I did it. One day we played 110 holes on June 20, one year, June 20th.
Starting at what time of the day?
Oh, 6 at dawn, whenever
Yeah.
dawn is, 6:30, and we got done well before dark. We actually did. But Mike must have made 25 long putts in those holes. He's such a good putter. Should I go on with the Coleman?
Well, the Coleman Cup, but you were not a golfer. You were something else in the Coleman.
In the Coleman Cup, I was in it, but I always got knocked out early in the match play. So he knew I was around to be his caddy in the finals when he got in the finals 2 years, I believe 2 out of 3 years or 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
He played non-tel, and they were tough matches, but it's an easy job for a caddy because he only really needed a few clubs. The country club golf course is not long, so Mike would say, driver, 11 iron, driver, 11 iron.
But here's the question,
Yeah.
though. Did you ever say to him, like, I think you should use a different club, Mike?
I don't remember getting in his way. Let's put it that way. 'Cause he, like I mentioned earlier, that we played a lot of Fridays together. I beat him, 1 time out of 10. He was always solid.
You talked about both of you were friends again off the golf course, but I know Mike was fond of music. Scott used to talk about when they were in the traveling broadcast vehicle, the locker room.
Traveling locker room,
the
yeah.
locker room, that Mike would be singing all the way to Rice Lake and back while Scott was trying to prepare for the broadcast, And but you both of you went to concerts with them, and you maybe have some reflections on that, Steve.
Well, I think that's one of the last trips we took with them as a couple is to the Eagles concert in Milwaukee at Summerfest. And, but he loved Dan Sobronic, going up to Leo and Leona's. He went to Larry Fest. He really supported local music and loved it.
Yeah. He took the Lead Balloon Show to another level. I mentioned early in the first segment that I woke up listening to the Lead Balloon Show when Charlie was doing it. Because I remember the time, I think Barry Manilow was singing, or Liberace was playing the piano or something, and he said, Charlie said, "Hey, Terry, are you up yet? How you like that piano playing, Terry? I know the Boys and Girls Club's having an event coming up." It's like that was my alarm clock when I woke up that morning. But he took it to another level, and the level was, he'd always say, 3 hours of commercials, and that's what it was. And by the way, it all started with the Duke, John Wayne.
Right.
If you guys remember that,
Sure.
maybe you guys probably weren't up
I
at
do.
6, but with the Pledge of Allegiance.
That was how he started his show each morning. Yeah.
Exactly.
John Wayne reciting the pledge.
But it was the world's worst radio
Right.
show.
Right.
You think that was true?
No, I don't think it was true, but it was typical Mike to be humble and to deflect attention and so forth. But no, the show itself was really certainly unique, but great in the sense that it really connected the community. I mean, there were so many people who Mike knew and would listen and be part of the show, whether they were advertisers or listeners. But he was a tremendous broadcaster in the sense that if he told you that there was a sale on prime rib at Quillen's, you were probably going to go to Quillen's that day. And if he told you that Ray Hudson was selling this great card, that you should go take a look at it. He got success for those clients that invested their hard-earned money with us and made sure that they got a return on their investment. And as a broadcaster, that was really, one of his responsibilities, but it just shows how good he was at it and just so natural.
And he really liked his sponsors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Three hours of sponsors like you said, Quillins, and of course, we had to get a weekly update about Drugans from Mary Drugan.
Right, and a dirty joke.
And you had to kind of like, ooh, shall I listen to this one? And then he would talk in Schmitty's and Boyers and Rose Jewelers and Wetsteins. And then he had this goofy guy on that brought a lot of listeners right close to the radio, and that was Roscoe Bugsy Short. Goofy. You know, I got about 20 nicknames.
Roscoe Harvey Bugsy Jr. Goofy Short. Yes, I think that was it.
I think you missed a couple.
I might have.
But you're right. Loyal listeners, loyal sponsors.
Very much. I think people trusted Mike, and that's why they listened, and that's why his sponsors, really enjoyed being on the program.
And of course, he did a lot of remotes, but he also talked about friendship, and he connected with so many people. Whether you were in the barn, where I was when I was young, milking in the morning, or whether you were walking with a walkie-talkie thing, Walkman, I guess is the first one that I had, or whether you were in the house, whether you were in the car, or whether you were laying in bed like maybe you were early in the morning.
Very often. Very often.
You were listening to the Lead Balloon Show. Hey, and here's the interesting thing about it. Demographics didn't play a part in it. Because young people would tell me that's what they listen to in the morning. It's like, what? You're like 15, 16 years old, you listen to the Lead Balloon Show? And then their great-grandfather, who was in his 80s, he listened to it too.
That's correct.
And even guys that were late getting up in the morning, like Steve Franke, you listened to it.
I still would listen to it, and if I didn't, I would act like I did when I saw it.
Yeah, well, but it's incredible what he did with that show. I remember early on, Derek Kroll and I, and Derek passed away a few years ago too, and he was one of my best friends and played for me, and he worked for me, and became a close friend. We used to go down on Highway 35, where in the transmitter. That's where Mike Kearns started, on the road to Stoddard.
Right.
We would go to the transmitter, and that's where he did the show. And then later on, of course, on Main Street here in La Crosse after that.
Yeah, things have changed a lot in radio since those early days, but yeah, they every morning would have to make that trip out there and hope there wasn't a train coming that was going to get them stuck on the other side of the tracks, because you had to get to the microphone on the other side.
Exactly. Well, either a train, or oftentimes when I would go there early in the morning too, deer would be in the way.
Right.
So it was a fun trip. But what I appreciated about Mike Kearns too is that he every public service announcements from anyone or guests, whether Red Cross, YMCA, whatever it was, he would take time to have them on the show. And Derek and I were on monthly, and we had we gave them some information, but we had more fun than anything else.
Right.
So, all right, well, let's take a break. And when we come back, after these messages, more on legendary Mike Kearns.
You know, the thing I'm most proud of when I think about our company is the reputation that we've been able to build in this community. Our technicians have done a great job going out and performing magnificent jobs for the customer. And our customers have rewarded us with some really great reviews online.
We have over 150 five-star reviews online right now. Our technicians do a great job out there, and our reviews show it.
We can say without hesitation, when you choose Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, you'll be glad you did.
When you're faced with the decision of selecting a monument to honor someone dear to you, call Lewiston Monuments for a no-obligation consultation. Lewiston Monument is a full-service monument company, serving families in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin for over 4 generations. You'll find beautiful granite, marble, and bronze memorials, all at competitive prices. Their experts can help you design the perfect and unique memorial. Lewiston Monument. Call today or on the web at lewistonmonument.com.
Welcome back to this week's show, a tribute to Mike Kearns. Well, through 68 years of broadcasting between Mike and Charlie Kearns, broadcasting college, broadcasting high school, state championships, WISA, WIAA, you name it. The Indians, and then the Eagles, UWL, and of course, traveling all through the country. Not always by car, though. Right, Steve?
That's right. One time, he and Scotty had to do a basketball game on a Friday night, and they had a game, a UWL playoff game, Saturday in Ames, Iowa. So I offered to fly him down, and we flew down and got there, and we're like 5 miles away from the stadium, and I asked if we could get a taxi, and they said there aren't any taxis. And the owner of the FBO said, but you can take my car if you wouldn't mind putting a couple dollars of gas in it. So we filled it up for him, but Mike was just amazed that somebody would give you their car. So,
you know, what was a mystery to me, and we talked about it a few years ago when I had Mike on the show talking about his career, was his weekly visit to the Smart Table. Now, the Smart Table was at the Bluff site with Mike Gaisley and Mike Kratt and Dave Clements and so on. But I'm speaking for myself, but I maybe for you too, that we were never invited. And I was just always curious as to what the criteria was for going to the Bluff site at the Smart Table.
It was a great mystery because he never revealed it to me either. I was never invited and never witnessed it, but I know that he longed for it when it was time.
Was it actually smart talk or was it nonsense? I think maybe more toward nonsense.
well, I went a few times. It wasn't that smart. But I think the way they got the name Smart Table is because a car had crashed into the Bluff side.
The other side of the bar.
The other side of the bar. So they had the table way in back, which made it the Smart Table.
I did not know that.
Yes.
The mystery has been solved for all of you that were wondering the same thing. I know, because I never knew that either. You know, in an article that was published in the Lacrosse Tribune, the title was The Spirit of a Champion, and I'm not sure if, I hope that our viewers did see it. It was the spirit of Scott Erickson and what he did in his community. But it was also Mike Kearns, the spirit of Mike Kearns, the spirit of devotion to the game with over 2 decades of just him and Scott broadcasting. What I thought, and maybe I'm a little partial, but I said the gold standard of broadcasting. And I truly in my heart believe that. You know, a lot of people think of Earl Gillespie and they think of Ray Scott, Bob Uecker. I grew up listening to Ray Scott and Earl Gillespie. And then Frank Gifford along with Don Meredith and Al Michaels and now Chris Collingsworth. Certainly good broadcasters. But Mike Kearns and Scott in this community, that combination attracted an incredible amount of listeners, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Very popular, no question about that. I mean, they would go on the road to, as you said, long distances to do a game, and sometimes in the same day. He would do, especially come tournament time, I think the girls played in Milwaukee, one was in Madison or something, and he would bounce back and forth between them in the same day. And
then get up at 4:30
and then get up and that was the part he didn't like. But yeah, he's certainly dedicated to sports and to, you know, highlighting the accomplishments of these young athletes.
You know, I was running one day, my usual run through Riverside Park, not too long ago. And I don't go very fast, so I can, you know, when someone talks to me in their car or sitting there, I can always hear them because I'm not going too fast past them. Hey, Terry, one guy said, I just want you to know that your brother and Mike Kearns were 2 of the very best broadcasters this area has ever heard. I couldn't even believe that comment, which was unsolicited.
I would totally agree with that. One of the things that Scott was trained pretty much by Mike, wasn't he?
He sure was.
I mean, that's what's amazing. How, you know, I'm not taking away from Scott, but it had to be easy to work with a guy like Mike Kearns. I mean, because he just did such a great job at it.
You know, to
and Scotty obviously caught on real well.
Yeah, and you know, you know, things change, people move on, life goes on, but no disrespect intended for anyone else or any stations. But certainly, in the best combination was Scott and Mike. And the best early morning radio show ever, no disrespect intended to anyone else, was the Lead Balloon Show.
That was uniquely Mike Kearns and WKTY, but that passion for calling the games was really what drove Mike, and I know he loved working with Scotty too, and together they were just a great tandem, and it was really just the passion. I couldn't believe when we first got involved in the station how many games they did in a year, and I'm like, you know, why do you do all these games? He goes, because I like it. I like doing the games. He would do girls' games. He would do boys' games. Always trying to make sure he had the right balance to make sure that one athletic director didn't get mad at him, you know, because he called too many of these games or not enough of these games. And, you know, he felt that. He knew that, and he tried to address that. And
I'd be working a matinee game in Minneapolis, in the MIAC, or in down near Milwaukee, in Madison, or whatever. And I knew there was a game on at night. So as soon as I got in the car, I would turn to WKTY and listen as much as I could. Sometimes I didn't hear it very well because there wasn't a strong enough signal.
Night signal, yeah.
But I would listen all the way home, and it was a highlight of my trip back to lacrosse. What do you think collectively? What were the keys to his success as a father, as a grandfather, as a husband? What were his keys?
I think he was a guy who was really comfortable in his own skin. I mean, he loved his family and was really proud of them. He loved his work. He was a great friend. He was just comfortable in who he was.
What do you think he'd be most remembered for?
Well, I certainly think in the city he'll be most remembered for his on-the-air broadcasting and his sportscasting. What I will most remember him for is just his nature and great sense of humor, a dry sense of humor. Loved to make fun of himself, which was, you know, obviously he liked it. He was humble.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll remember him for.
I think the legacy of the Charlie Kearns Memorial Golf Tournament at Drugan's Sportscaster Club, raising a lot of money in the community, all those, and some of that you may continue with.
Right. Yeah, the Sportscasters Club continues to this day and giving away scholarship money to deserving student athletes from area high schools. And I know Mike was very, very, very proud of that, too.
He was.
Make sure that they got the recognition they deserved.
Yeah, before we close, our viewers need to know that the family will have a celebration of life for Mike Kearns on July 31st, next month at Myrick Park. Details will be forthcoming, and I hope you can attend. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's show, a tribute to the life of Mike Kearns with Steve Franke, Steve Tanke, Scott Robert Shaw. It's been a pleasure having you guys on. You know that?
Thanks for having us.
I love hosting the show, and I hope all of you enjoyed the show, and I hope you have an active and a healthy week ahead. Thanks for joining us.